The story begins in a high school classroom where two boys sit in the back. The one on the second last seat is visibly excited, eagerly anticipating the arrival of the transfer student. In contrast, the boy sitting behind him appears uninterested in the conversation and remains unresponsive. The excited lad comments on how calm and collected his friend seems, even in such a situation. The last seater acknowledges the remark with a nod, maintaining his composure. The teacher, standing at the front of the room, commands the students to settle down and take their seats. The class obediently falls silent, their attention focused on her. She addresses them with news about the transfer student, mentioning that she will be joining their class. With a gesture, the teacher invites the new girl into the room. As she steps inside, the entire class is taken aback by her appearance. She introduces herself as Kyoko Kirishima, announcing that she has transferred to Shizukidai High School. While the rest of the class is captivated by her charm, the boy in the last seat is paralyzed with fear. His eyes fixate on a terrifying ghostly figure hovering behind Kyoko. The ghost has long hair and a glaring eye that sends chills down his spine. He tries to process the situation, overwhelmed by the realization that no one else seems to see the entity. The teacher instructs Kyoko Kirishima to take the empty seat at the back of the classroom. She complies, walking toward the seat next to him. As she approaches, the boy's friend leans over, calling him Nozomi and teasing him about how lucky he is to have Kirishima sitting beside him. Distracted by the ghostly presence, Nozomi quietly repeats the words. Misreading his reaction, his friend asks if Kyoko isn't to his liking. He tries to respond but can't find the words. Kirishima arrives at her seat and greets Nozomi warmly before sitting down. The boy in front introduces himself as Yoroshiku, but Nozomi remains frozen in fear, his thoughts consumed by the eerie creature still looming behind her. He wonders why no one else can see the ghost and whether Kirishima herself is aware of its presence. As Kirishima begins to settle in, the ghost climbs onto her shoulders, perching with its legs draped across her. Nozomi watches in horror as the ghost teases and torments her, its actions entirely unnoticed by anyone else. He questions whether the creature is a ghost or merely a hallucination. When the ghost's eyes suddenly meet his, he panics and quickly hides his face behind a book, hoping to avoid further interaction. He resolves to ignore the ghost entirely, convincing himself that feigning indifference will keep him safe. The ghost, however, seems determined to provoke Nozomi. It moves closer to him, hovering ominously before returning to Kirishima. Despite his growing fear, he steels himself, deciding to focus on his studies and ignore the supernatural presence. Yet his resolve falters when he hears Kirishima making distressed noises. Glancing sideways, he sees the ghost squeezing Kirishima's chest, causing her discomfort. Conflicted, he questions whether he should intervene but ultimately remains silent, uncertain of what to do. When Kirishima insists she is fine despite her discomfort, Nozomi can only nod in forced agreement, his thoughts racing. The ghost then shifts its attention to him, placing its hands on his shoulders. Sweat beads on his forehead as he tries to maintain a facade of composure. Finally, the school day ends and Kirishima leaves with her classmates, the ghost trailing behind her. Nozomi watches her go, feeling a mix of relief and dread. He resolves to avoid her and the ghost as much as possible. As he retrieves his shoes from the locker, he notices Kirishima standing alone nearby. Assuming she is waiting for someone, he tries to slip away unnoticed, but she calls out to him. She expresses her gratitude for his earlier concern, mentioning how much it helped her feel at ease. He remains silent, his mind racing with thoughts about the ghost's influence. Kirishima introduces herself formally and asks for his name. Hesitant, he replies that his name is Tori Nozomi. Unexpectedly, she asks if he would like to be her friend, extending her hand for a handshake. Nozomi hesitates, questioning why she would single him out, but the ghost forces him to shake her hand before he can refuse. She beams with happiness at his reluctant gesture, while he hides his fear behind a strained smile, silently cursing his predicament. The next day, all the students are present in class, attending their lecture. The teacher unexpectedly calls on Kirishima to read from the book. She stands confidently and begins reading aloud, her voice steady and clear. Nozomi observes her, thinking about how diligent and friendly she is. He recalls their meeting the previous day, recalling how approachable and kind she was. Despite his usual reserved nature, she had engaged him in conversation without hesitation, which he found both surprising and endearing. As Kirishima finishes reading and takes her seat, the teacher expresses gratitude for her contribution. Nozomi's gaze shifts, and he once again notices the ghost lingering nearby. The moment passes quickly, and soon it is recess time. Tanioka, the boy who sits in front of Nozomi, invites him to join him for lunch. Despite his quiet demeanor, Nozomi and Tanioka-kun have formed a casual friendship, though Tanioka's energetic personality contrasts sharply with his reserved nature. Tanioka suggests inviting Toko-chan to explore the school cafeteria and have lunch together. Kirishima politely declines, explaining that she has brought her lunch and likes to eat in a peaceful spot. However, Tanioka persists, suggesting they eat on the school rooftop, which is open to everyone. After much persuasion, she reluctantly agrees, though Nozomi silently empathizes with her hesitation. They head to the rooftop after Tanioka grabs some bread from the school store. Kirishima sets down her lunchbox, revealing an impressive spread of food that surprises both boys. Nozomi, curious, asks if she plans to eat all of it herself. She laughs awkwardly and admits she is a heavy eater. Tanioka reassures her that a good appetite is a sign of health, and Nozomi agrees, though he silently recalls noticing her unease about this before. Kirishima prays before eating and begins her meal. As she eats, Nozomi notices the ghost reappearing and seemingly draining energy from her. Despite her efforts to enjoy the meal, she mentions feeling as though the food isn't satisfying her, which aligns with what Nozomi suspects about the ghost's influence. Tanioka enthusiastically compliments her eating habits, while Kirishima expresses mild embarrassment about her appetite, adding that it feels strange that she never seems to gain weight. Tanioka assures her there is nothing to be ashamed of, calling it pleasant to see. Suddenly, Nozomi interrupts, claiming there is a bee on her head. He waves his hands above her, pretending to shoo it away, but his real goal is to disrupt the ghost's draining. Kirishima thanks him, and Tanioka praises his quick action. The ghost eventually retreats, leaving Kirishima looking more at ease. After lunch, Kirishima remarks on how full she feels. This confirms Nozomi's suspicion that the ghost's interference was to blame. Tanioka theorizes that eating together might have helped, and Kirishima agrees, feeling happier and less burdened. Nozomi silently disagrees, knowing the spirit is the true cause. He observes the ghost looming near him, hands on his head, before noticing Kirishima offering her bento to him. She insists he try some of her food despite his hesitation. As she moves to feed him, the ghost seems to cheer him on, which unnerves him. Just as he's about to take a bite, Tanioka eats the piece instead, apologizing playfully. Kirishima brushes it off, offering another piece to Nozomi, who finally tastes it and praises her cooking. Kirishima admits she had expected to eat alone until graduation and expresses surprise at how quickly she has made friends after transferring. Nozomi, touched by her vulnerability, politely asks if they can have lunch together again. She hesitates briefly before agreeing. Meanwhile, Tanioka continues eating, oblivious to the ghost now drawing energy from him. Kirishima comments on his large appetite, while Nozomi silently hopes he keeps eating to distract the ghost. As the lunch period ends, he reflects on the unusual events and the bonds forming between them. Nozomi sits in the library, immersed in his work, surrounded by the calm he cherishes. The distant shouts of athletes and the echo of the brass band from the music club blend into a soothing backdrop. He finds comfort in the solitude, enjoying the rare quiet with only the deputy librarian nearby. To him, the library is a sanctuary, a personal kingdom where he can work undisturbed, free to let his thoughts wander. However, his peaceful moment is suddenly interrupted when he notices something unusual under the table. His heart races as he spots a ghostly figure. Panic sets in, and he screams, the sound echoing in the quiet library. The deputy librarian, hearing the disturbance, immediately orders him to be quiet. Nozomi, still frightened, looks back at the ghostly figure, attempting to understand why it is there. At that moment, he hears a familiar voice calling his name. He turns, startled, to find Kirishima standing nearby. Her presence helps calm his nerves, but the shock of seeing the ghost still lingers. Kirishima, sensing his distress, asks if everything is okay, but Nozomi, still shocked, mumbles something incomprehensible. Kirishima, unsure of what he said, leans closer and asks for clarification. Nozomi tries to brush off his fear, pretending that he had merely sensed her arrival, though his face betrays his unease. Kirishima, curious, asks if he is studying. Nozomi responds affirmatively, and in turn, questions her about her reason for being in the library. Kirishima explains that she's just exploring, as the library is vast and interesting. She then politely asks if she can sit with him. Nozomi, still feeling on edge but not wanting to seem rude, agrees without hesitation. Despite his initial discomfort, Nozomi quickly grows accustomed to Kirishima's presence. They settle into a natural rhythm, the silence between them calm and unforced. As they study, Nozomi's thoughts drift. Watching Kirishima, absorbed in her work, he quietly admires her beauty in the stillness before shaking off the thought and refocusing on his studies. Kirishima, unaware of his internal musings, remarks on the serenity of the space, noting how quiet and peaceful it is. Nozomi agrees with her, expressing that this place is indeed his favorite. Kirishima mentions that she will visit the library more often. His face reveals his surprise, and she inquires if he's uncomfortable with the idea. Nozomi quickly denies it. In his mind, though, Nozomi begins to feel conflicted. The library had always been his retreat, and now that it might become a place for both of them to frequent, he feels a sense of vulnerability. The thought that he's no longer alone in this peaceful haven creates a strange tension within him. He can't help but think of how different it will be with someone else occupying the same space. Yet as his thoughts continue to race, he notices a presence, the ghostly figure from earlier, now lurking in the shadows. He tries to shake off the unsettling feeling, telling himself to focus on his work. Despite his attempts to concentrate, the presence of the spirit continues to linger, and Nozomi feels its eerie presence in the corner of his eye. The stillness of the library is broken by the sudden buzz of Nozomi's phone, making him jump. Kirishima looks up, concerned, and he quickly waves it off, saying it's just a text from his sister, though it's unusual for her to message him. She smirks a little at how startled he is, but as he checks the text, a sense of unease creeps in. It just states "say something," but there's no clear sender. He assumes it's from his sister, but the uncertainty leaves him uneasy. As he contemplates the message, the spirit continues to move around them, its presence growing more ominous. Suddenly, his phone vibrates again, and this time, the message includes the word "cursed." Nozomi's heart skips a beat as he realizes the message is unlike anything he's ever received. He wonders if the spirit is somehow involved in this strange occurrence, though he can't be sure. In a state of confusion and fear, Nozomi looks at his phone once more, and this time, he receives a picture of Kirishima in a bikini. Stunned by the inappropriate image, he shouts, catching Kirishima's concerned gaze. The deputy librarian, annoyed by the outburst, quickly reminds them to keep quiet. Kirishima, still unsure of what's happening, asks if he wants to leave. He reassures her that he's fine, claiming that it's just a text from his sister, though his words do little to calm his nerves. As Nozomi fumbles with his phone, attempting to silence it, he notices the spirit laughing at him, further unsettling him. Kirishima, sensing his discomfort, remarks that he seems close to his sister. Nozomi, confused by her observation, stumbles over his words, not knowing how to respond. He mutters that his sister is not bad, though the conversation only adds to his unease. The tension grows as Kirishima asks politely if they can exchange pine IDs. Nozomi agrees, though he feels a mixture of excitement and discomfort at the thought. After exchanging their IDs, he prepares to put his phone away, but it rings once more. This time, when he looks at the screen, he is met with another shocking image: Kirishima bathing. His heart races, and he drops his phone in disbelief. Kirishima, now alarmed, yells, demanding to know what's happening, while the deputy librarian sternly tells them to stay quiet. Though he adds Kirishima to his contact list, the day's strange events leave him uneasy and on edge, unsure what to make of it all. Nozomi lies on his bed in the quiet evening, his hands occupied with knitting as his thoughts drift toward Kirishima. He recalls exchanging contact information with her and considers sending her a message, yet he hesitates, feeling he has nothing significant to say. His phone suddenly vibrates, drawing his attention. He wonders if the message could be from Kirishima. His curiosity is piqued when she sends a simple "good evening" sticker. He replies with a polite "good evening," but instantly regrets not using a sticker himself. Despite this small slip, their conversation flows easily, drawing him in and making him forget about the knitting in his hands. As they chat, she asks if he could show her a nearby bookstore where she hopes to find a math reference book. Nozomi feels a mix of confusion and uncertainty, unsure if she wants directions or his company. Her playful request stickers make her intent clear, and she mentions waiting for him at the school gate after class, leaving him no room to refuse. As their chat ends, Nozomi's mind drifts to the outing, momentarily mistaking it for a date. Quickly shaking off the notion, he reminds himself that he is merely helping her shop. The next day, as school ends, they walk together toward the bookstore. Kirishima mentions she is unfamiliar with the area since she is new and apologizes for inconveniencing him. Nozomi assures her it is fine, though he quietly marvels at the fact that they are walking together. As they proceed, he senses an unusual presence following them. Trying to dismiss the oddity, he reassures himself that this is just a casual outing to a bookstore. Kirishima remarks on her fondness for bookstores, expressing that it is not only the books, but also the comforting atmosphere she enjoys. Nozomi shares his own interest in books, though he remains distracted by the mysterious presence. They soon arrive at Kamiki Bookstore, and Kirishima marvels at its size. Entering together, Nozomi notices something peculiar. The strange presence seems to leave Kirishima the moment they step inside. Kirishima stretches, exclaiming her love for bookstores, and Nozomi wonders if the relief she displays is due to escaping the haunting presence or merely her genuine appreciation for bookstores. Despite his concern, he decides not to dwell on it. Kirishima suggests exploring the store before searching for her reference book, and Nozomi agrees. Wandering through the aisles, he spots a book titled Hobby Time, which this month features knitting. Tempted to buy it, he decides to return for it later since he is with Kirishima. His attention shifts to a dark-colored book on a nearby shelf. Pulling it out, he notices it is titled Rites of Exorcism. Intrigued by its ominous theme, he considers its potential usefulness. However, Kirishima interrupts his thoughts, asking if the book is of interest to him. Embarrassed, he fumbles for an excuse, claiming it is for his younger sister. Kirishima agrees, remarking that such interests are common at a certain age, and he silently berates himself for using his sister as an excuse once again. They eventually find the mathematics reference section. Kirishima notes the variety of books and asks Nozomi which one he uses. Before he can answer, a loud noise echoes through the store, startling him. Kirishima, unaware of the source, asks what is happening. He quickly dismisses her concern, excusing himself under the pretext of needing to use the restroom. Away from her, Nozomi searches for the source of the noise and finds the spirit engrossed in a book. Peering closer, he realizes the spirit is reading a shoujo manga, its story centered on romantic confession. The spirit reacts with loud laughter and excitement, making Nozomi suspect it enjoys such lighthearted tales. Relieved that the spirit seems harmless and distracted, he returns to Kirishima. Upon his return, he notices something unsettling. Behind Kirishima, a man with glasses is attempting to take an inappropriate photograph from under her skirt. Frozen in shock and disbelief, Nozomi's mind races as he processes the situation, unsure of how to react. Nozomi stands nearby, observing the man who seems to be taking covert photos of Kirishima. The suspicion feels too real to be a mere figment of his imagination. Torn between his desire to intervene and his uncertainty about how to approach the situation, a whirlwind of thoughts floods his mind. He considers that moving closer might deter the man, but doubts linger. Just then, the faint rustling of a spirit reading a book catches his attention. Frustration builds as he wonders why the spirit remains so detached during such a critical moment. He quickly reminds himself not to rely on her and resolves to act on his own. Summoning his courage, he takes a deep breath and loudly calls out the man, accusing him of taking inappropriate photos. The man, visibly startled, denies the claim and feigns ignorance. Kirishima, now frightened, moves closer to Nozomi. Reiterating his accusation, Nozomi insists the man is using his phone to take pictures. The man denies it again and turns to leave, but when Nozomi tries to grab his arm, the man shoves him away. He falls to the ground, and a small toy tumbles from his pocket. Seizing the moment, the man flees the scene. Kirishima kneels beside Nozomi, her gratitude evident as she clutches his shirt. Nozomi, however, apologizes, feeling that his actions were insufficient. She reassures him, saying his effort meant everything to her. While he feels guilty for scaring her and allowing the man to escape, she expresses her relief and gratitude, insisting he has done enough. They exchange words of concern, ensuring the other is unharmed. He promises to inform the store clerk about the incident. Unbeknownst to them, the spirit continues to observe silently from the book rack. Meanwhile, the man retreats to a restroom, his mind racing with regret and anger. Fearing that security cameras might have captured his actions, he resolves never to return to the bookstore. Despair turns to bitterness as he curses Nozomi, wishing him harm. Suddenly, the restroom lights flicker ominously. A message appears on his phone, asking for his location. Confused and unnerved, he looks around only to see the eerie feet of the spirit approaching. Another message follows, ominously stating that she has found him. Terror grips him as he senses a presence behind him. He screams as the spirit attacks, his phone slipping from his grasp and shattering on the floor. Outside the bookstore, Nozomi and Kirishima discuss the incident, relieved to see police officers arriving. He mentions that the security cameras likely captured the man, ensuring he will be caught soon. Kirishima apologizes for involving him in the ordeal, but he dismisses her apology, insisting the blame lies solely with the man. Her heartfelt thanks bring a smile to his face, though he remains modest, believing he did little to help. As they leave, he notices the spirit nearby and silently questions her absence during the confrontation. Suddenly, his phone vibrates with multiple notifications. Kirishima points it out, and Nozomi retrieves his phone from his bag. To his shock, the screen displays a disturbing image of the man, clearly indicating something has happened to him. In his mind, Nozomi demands answers from the spirit, who now appears to be drawing energy from Kirishima. Kirishima, unaware of the spirit's presence, complains of hunger. Nozomi attributes her sudden exhaustion to the spirit's actions, but suggests they grab a meal before heading home. Her excitement at the idea lifts his spirits as he notes how cheerful she looks. They find a cozy place to eat, and as they sit across from each other, Nozomi observes Kirishima's happiness. Her bright demeanor contrasts sharply with the day's earlier chaos, leaving him with a mix of relief and lingering unease about the spirit's role in everything that transpired. Nozomi receives a text from Kirishima about the recent incident at the bookstore. She informs him that the culprit has been apprehended. The arrest came after the police received a report about a man lying unconscious in a restroom. Upon investigation, they identified him as the same individual caught on the store's surveillance cameras. The man's phone is later found to contain several spy videos, including one of Kirishima, but fortunately, there appears to be no evidence of any leaks. The next day, during lunch, Nozomi and Kirishima sit together. Tanioka interrupts to ask about the due date for their English assignment. While they discuss this, Nozomi notices that Kirishima seems upset. He assumes her mood is linked to the incident at the bookstore. Later, as they study in the library, her distressed demeanor continues to trouble him. Concerned, he asks if she is okay. She smiles in response and assures him she is fine, but her expression contradicts her words. Her behavior prompts Nozomi to wonder if the bookstore incident is still weighing on her mind. Suddenly, Kirishima mentions she has something to tell him. Intrigued, Nozomi gives her his full attention. She then reveals a small stuffed toy, which she says she found after he was pushed during the bookstore incident. Nozomi recalls the moment and feels slightly embarrassed. She apologizes for not returning it earlier, but he thanks her and reflects on how it feels awkward to admit he knits his own stuffed animals. When she asks if it is handmade, he quickly fabricates a story, claiming it is a gift from his sister. Kirishima, however, is skeptical, noting that the craftsmanship seems unusual for something his sister might make. The situation becomes more uncomfortable for Nozomi as he senses an overwhelming spiritual presence. The ghost, always lingering nearby, appears to be scrutinizing his interaction with Kirishima. Feeling pressured, he hesitantly maintains his story, but eventually decides to confess the truth. He admits that the stuffed toy was not a gift from his sister, and that he had made it himself. Embarrassed, he explains that he hesitated to tell her because he thought it might seem strange for a high school boy to knit. Kirishima surprises him by expressing admiration for his talent. She insists that there is nothing unusual about it and praises the toy's intricate design. Their conversation takes a lively turn when she playfully mocks him, speculating that the toy might have been made by a girl or received as a gift from a girlfriend. Nozomi, flustered, denies having a girlfriend, which leads to her exclaiming loudly in the library. The deputy librarian sternly reminds them to remain quiet, adding to the awkwardness. Despite this, Kirishima continues to express her excitement and admiration for Nozomi's skills. Her enthusiasm surprises him, but he feels a sense of relief and gratitude for her positive reaction. The moment is interrupted when Tanioka appears, asking Nozomi for help with printing materials. The deputy librarian grows increasingly frustrated with the group's noise, reprimanding them again. Nozomi notes Kirishima's change in expression as Tanioka approaches. He jokes that he had anticipated Tanioka's arrival to seek assistance with their English assignment. Kirishima, after a moment of reluctance, agrees to help Tanioka, laughing softly. Nozomi finds himself captivated by her cheerful demeanor, feeling relieved to see her smile return after the tense events of the past days. His face turns crimson at the thought of his feelings for Kirishima-san, but he denies it. He then notes the ghost playfully teasing Tanioka in the background. Nozomi observes the scene with quiet amusement. Three friends sit together on the school roof sharing lunch. Kirishima, full of energy, excitedly announces that Tanioka's team has qualified for the prefecture basketball tournament. She gushes about their strength, and he confidently predicts their success at the national championship this winter. She excitedly promises to cheer for him at the event, which prompts Tanioka to inquire about her interest in extracurricular activities. She admits she's been approached by various clubs, but is still considering her options, mentioning athletics, tennis, and swimming clubs. Nozomi, imagining her in sports uniforms, grows visibly flustered. Tanioka compliments her athleticism, while Kirishima and Tanioka shift the conversation to Nozomi's extracurricular interests. He denies having any, but Tanioka claims to have heard otherwise, prompting Kirishima to join in pressing for details. Hesitant, Nozomi admits a past interest in the home economics department. Kirishima expresses delight upon learning of a home economics club and shares her love for cooking, suggesting she might join. Nozomi quickly dismisses the idea of joining himself, but Tanioka encourages them both to consider it. Nozomi reveals his reluctance, attributing it to shyness. She reassures him, and Tanioka insists he wouldn't have to face it alone. After school, Kirishima shows Nozomi that the Home Economics Club is open for tours and mentions their cooking sessions on Wednesdays. Reluctantly, he agrees to accompany her. As they approach the room, they hear a commotion. Inside, a young club member struggles with a pot of chocolate, which boils over and creates a mess. Kirishima swiftly intervenes, turning off the stove and checking on the girl. The girl explains her misunderstanding of the instructions to melt chocolate in hot water, leading to the disaster. Kirishima gently corrects her, explaining the proper technique. The club president arrives and enthusiastically welcomes Kirishima and Nozomi. Kirishima introduces herself as a new sophomore, while Nozomi awkwardly follows suit. The president, Kaga Kasumi, and the young member, Tendo Mashiro, encourage them to participate in making cupcakes rather than merely observing. The president highlights the club's welcoming atmosphere, which helps ease Nozomi's nerves. As they bake, she appears radiant in an apron, and Nozomi finds himself admiring her. Meanwhile, Kirishima assists Tendo, and the president commends Nozomi's skills as he beats the batter. Although he denies being skilled, her praise boosts his confidence. He finds himself enjoying the experience, something he hadn't expected. The president's curiosity about his hobbies leads to a discussion about his interest in handicrafts, which she appreciates. As they taste the batter, a sudden appearance of a spirit frightens Nozomi, causing him to spit batter onto Kirishima and Tendo. Embarrassed, Nozomi apologizes profusely, but both girls laugh off the mishap. The president provides tissues for cleaning, and Nozomi awkwardly offers his jersey when Kirishima mentions her uniform is soiled. She thanks him, but the offer is not needed. The cupcakes turn out well, and the president praises their efforts. She encourages them to visit or join the club, emphasizing its small membership and welcoming nature. As they leave, the president pulls Kirishima aside, taunting her about her connection with Nozomi and offering her support. Kirishima, flustered, responds modestly. Nozomi, overhearing but not comprehending, notices the spirit grinning at him ominously, leaving him unsettled. The school day ends, and Kirishima approaches Tori-kun, holding the jersey he lent her during their home economics class. She thanks him for letting her borrow it while he apologizes for the trouble of washing it. As she lingers, it becomes clear she has something more to say. She remarks on the upcoming finals, and he agrees. She then proposes studying together at her place, explaining that it would be more exciting than studying alone. She also mentions her improved cooking skills, offering to make snacks for him to try. Nozomi is overwhelmed by mixed emotions. The thought of visiting Kirishima's house and tasting her homemade treats feels surreal. He hesitantly agrees, and she beams with excitement, confirming the plan for the next day and promising to text him her address. As she departs, Nozomi is left with a whirlwind of thoughts, excited yet nervous about the upcoming visit. That evening, seated at his study desk, he finds himself lost in anxious thoughts. The rarity of visiting a female friend's house concerns him, and he imagines all sorts of scenarios. He tries to calm himself, reasoning that nothing unusual will happen, but his mind continues to race. He begins obsessing over what to wear, debating whether his chosen outfit looks strange. He also agonizes over whether to bring a gift, worrying about appearing impolite or giving the wrong impression. Finally, exhausted by his worries, he lies down, though his nervousness prevents him from sleeping. The next day, standing in front of Kirishima's house, Nozomi reflects on his lack of sleep and questions whether his outfit looks odd. She opens the door wearing an adorable dress and invites him in. Nozomi is struck by how cute she looks and nervously asks for permission to enter. Inside, his unease grows as he climbs the stairs, asking about her family. She casually mentions that she's alone at home, further heightening his nerves. In her room, she mentions that she tidied up and then excuses herself to fetch tea and cookies. Nozomi sits cross-legged on the floor, marveling at how clean and comfy her room is compared to his sister's. His attention is drawn to a ghostly figure lounging comfortably on the bed. He briefly wonders if Kirishima is possessed, but notes the spirit's relaxed demeanor. They begin studying together, and the atmosphere becomes lighter. Nozomi feels a quiet joy in their shared focus, finding it a refreshing change from studying alone at the library. When he struggles with a math problem, she leans in to help, and Nozomi becomes momentarily lost in admiration. The peaceful moment ends when Kirishima checks the time and excuses herself to fetch the cookies. Alone in the room, he feels content, enjoying the idea of studying at her house and tasting her handmade snacks. However, his tranquility is disrupted when the ghost reappears, now sitting in front of him. Its sudden presence disturbs him, and he attempts to communicate with it, questioning its identity and intentions. The ghost remains silent but gestures toward a wardrobe. Confused, Nozomi hesitates before opening it, only to discover it contains Kirishima's undergarments. Mortified, he realizes the spirit has played a prank on him and hears its laughter echoing. Before he can recover, Kirishima enters the room with a tray of tea and cookies. Startled, he panics and awkwardly comments on a plushie in the corner to divert attention. As she approaches, he attempts to move but trips over a bag strap, causing both of them to fall. They end up on the floor, their faces inches apart. Nozomi is struck by how cute Kirishima looks up close, and his heart races. Embarrassed, they both turn red. She checks if he's okay, and they remain frozen in the moment, their proximity charged with unspoken tension. Suddenly, Kirishima recalls hearing the doorbell and excuses herself, leaving Nozomi alone. As he processes the near kiss, his nerves spiral. He glances at the ghost, which now covers its face with its arms, seemingly in embarrassment. Nozomi, confused, questions whether the spirit is upset. Meanwhile, Kirishima receives a parcel at the door, thanks the delivery man, and momentarily spaces out before returning to her room. Back together, they enjoy the tea and cookies. Kirishima asks for his opinion on the snacks, and he praises them, though he's too distracted to truly taste them. Despite his nerves, the experience leaves him exhilarated, emotions swirling as they quietly resume studying. In the classroom, Tanioka and Nozomi are engaged in conversation. Tanioka mentions that the final exams are less than a week away, and after that, they will finally have their long-awaited summer vacation. While they are talking, Kirishima enters the class, greets Tori-kun with a good morning, and sits at her desk. Noticing her, he is immediately reminded of the study session at her house, where they had an almost intimate moment. He grows nervous, managing only a brief response. His thoughts spiral as he realizes he has been thinking about her too much since then. He notices how she looks even more radiant than before, which only adds to his discomfort. Tanioka observes Nozomi's anxious expression and asks if something is wrong, but Nozomi quickly denies it, appearing even more flustered. The teacher begins the lesson, focusing on the correct use of some words, but Nozomi finds it impossible to concentrate. His mind wanders to Kirishima and the unresolved tension between them. He wonders how she feels about their near kiss and whether it has changed anything for her. Lost in thought, he barely registers the teacher calling his name. It is only when Kirishima nudges him that he snaps back to reality, standing abruptly and apologizing for not hearing the teacher earlier. Embarrassed, he tries to refocus, especially after the teacher reminds the class about the test scheduled for the next day. Despite his efforts, he continues to worry that his distraction is becoming evident to everyone around him. When the lunch break begins, Tanioka suggests heading to the rooftop to eat, and Kirishima agrees. However, Nozomi declines, citing errands as an excuse, and leaves the classroom, urging them to eat without him. She then unexpectedly decides not to join Tanioka either, confusing him. Meanwhile, Nozomi heads down the stairs, troubled by the awkwardness between him and Kirishima. He cannot understand why the situation feels so strained. Suddenly, Kirishima appears behind him, offering to accompany him and help with whatever he is doing. As he turns to respond, he accidentally catches a glimpse of her undergarments, a result of a mischievous spirit lurking nearby. Panicking, he bolts away, leaving Kirishima bewildered and hurt by his reaction. Furious at the spirit's interference, Nozomi confronts it while eating his lunch in solitude. He blames the spirit for making his interactions with Kirishima increasingly uncomfortable. As he vents, the spirit silently points towards something, and though reluctant, Nozomi decides to follow. The spirit leads him to a secluded spot where he overhears a conversation between Kirishima and Kaga-senpai. She confides in the president about the awkwardness with Nozomi since their study session. She expresses concern that his behavior has changed and fears he might be avoiding her. Hearing her speak so vulnerably shocks Nozomi, especially when she begins to cry, worried that he might not like her anymore. The president reassures her, insisting it is all in her imagination, and advises her to speak directly to Nozomi. Behind the wall, Nozomi reflects on her words, realizing he has been so absorbed in his own feelings that he has neglected hers. Guilt-ridden, he resolves to address the misunderstanding. After school, he waits for Kirishima at the gate and offers to walk her home. She accepts, and they begin their journey together. During the walk, Nozomi brings up the upcoming exams, and they share their mutual struggles with studying. The conversation shifts to the summer vacation, and Nozomi hesitantly asks if she would like to hang out during the break. Kirishima, surprised but thrilled, eagerly agrees. She expresses her excitement and suggests they plan something after the exams. Nozomi, encouraged by her enthusiasm, promises to do their best in the final so they can fully enjoy the summer. The tension between them starts to ease. The day is perfect, with a bright sun and blue skies dotted with soft white clouds. After the final exams, the long-awaited summer vacation begins, bringing a sense of excitement. This year, Nozomi planned to spend the vacation differently, visiting the pool with friends. The head of the Home Economics Club also joins them, expressing her joy over the break. In a flashback, Tanioka excitedly shares the plan with his friends, revealing that his father has provided them with 5 tickets for the water park. Kirishima and Nozomi eagerly agree to join. Tanioka mentions he has 2 additional tickets, offering to invite others. Kirishima suggests they invite Kaga-senpai, the head of the Home Economics Club, and Mashiro-chan, both of whom Nozomi agrees to bring along. With everyone on board, they eagerly anticipate the fun of the summer break. Now at the pool, the group enjoys their time together. Kaga-senpai expresses her gratitude for being invited, though Tanioka downplays the gesture, emphasizing the shared connection among the group. Tanioka teases Nozomi, commenting on his reactions to the girls around him, prompting a hesitant agreement from Nozomi. Kaga-senpai notices Kirishima's hesitation about her swimsuit as she wears a hoodie over her bikini. Senpai jokingly points this out, eventually removing the hoodie without permission, causing Kirishima to feel embarrassed. Both boys are stunned, and Tanioka remarks on Kirishima's beauty, prompting Kaga to jokingly reprimand him. Nozomi, reflecting on the situation, decides that he will make an effort today to be more confident around Kirishima, hoping to connect with her better and maybe invite her out. The group continues to enjoy the pool, with Mashiro munching on cupcakes, the boys taking on exciting rides, and the girls having fun. However, Nozomi begins to feel nervous and uncertain, realizing he hasn't made much progress in approaching Kirishima. Sensing his discomfort, Tanioka checks in on him, and Kaga-senpai, noticing his hesitation, decides to act. She announces her hunger, prompting Tanioka to ask if she wants to eat. She agrees, suggesting they go somewhere to eat, but insists that Nozomi stay behind, as he isn't hungry. Nozomi, confused and unsure, agrees to stay. Kaga drags Mashiro along, even though she doesn't want to go, reasoning that this is the least she can do for the group. While the others head off to eat, Nozomi and Kirishima are left behind. She suggests they take a swim together, and Nozomi sees it as a perfect opportunity to engage with her. He nervously compliments her swimsuit, which she graciously acknowledges. Feeling it was a bit abrupt, he nonetheless suggests they move to the wave pool. However, the area is crowded with vacationers, and Nozomi comments on the bustle, to which Kirishima explains it's typical for the summer. Surrounded by couples in the pool, he grows increasingly nervous, unsure if they are meant to be a couple or if they are simply friends. They share a moment of quiet connection, gazing at each other as the atmosphere around them feels increasingly charged. Observing them with a knowing smirk, the spirit watches their every move. Nozomi and Kirishima are at the pool, enjoying the moment together. He feels a deep sense of happiness, relishing their time in each other's company. As a wave approaches, he accidentally dives into the water, prompting Kirishima to laugh and check if he's okay. They both continue to enjoy the experience as if it were a dream. After a while, she suggests they head back, and Nozomi agrees, noting that they finally had some time alone. He dives into the water again, his expression changing as he comes up, expressing a desire to go deeper. She agrees, and they both decide to spend more time in the pool. He then proposes they go out alone to enjoy next time, which she readily agrees to, her smile reflecting her happiness. Meanwhile, an unseen spirit watches them, observing their every move. Not long after, Nozomi accidentally bumps into a man, who becomes angry and scolds him. Nozomi quickly apologizes, but the man's girlfriend calls out to him lovingly, drawing his attention. They briefly exchange words, and Nozomi watches them, while the spirit observes the scene with growing frustration. Kirishima and Nozomi prepare to leave, but as they move away, the spirit summons a fog around the couple, creating a powerful wave in the pool. The wave rushes toward the couple, but in her haste to act, the spirit overlooks Nozomi and Kirishima's presence. The wave startles both of them, and Nozomi asks if Kirishima is okay. He suggests they should leave, but Kirishima suddenly senses something is off. She asks him not to turn around, as her swimsuit has come loose due to the pressure of the wave. Feeling her body press against his, Nozomi grows nervous but reassures her they will find the swimsuit. Realizing the spirit is behind it all, he spots the swimsuit floating nearby and moves to retrieve it. As he tries to reach it, he loses his balance and in the process, accidentally finds himself underwater, briefly seeing her half naked. Kirishima retrieves her swimsuit and quickly puts it on, thanking Tori-kun for his help. Despite her gratitude, he remains visibly shaken by the awkward situation. Nozomi sits alone in a cafe, reflecting on the fact that it has been a week since Kirishima-san promised to hang out. He is suddenly interrupted by the sound of Tanioka apologizing for being late. Tanioka, looking unusually tanned, explains that he's coming from the basketball club. Nozomi notices his tan and comments on it, curious since Tanioka is not a member of the baseball team. Tanioka reveals that he has a sunburn from summer vacation activities. When Nozomi asks why he called him to the cafe, Tanioka is intrigued. Nozomi, a little nervous, asks if he has ever been on a date. Tanioka, clearly surprised by the question, responds that he didn't expect such a question from Nozomi. Though a little embarrassed, Nozomi is reassured when Tanioka says he can ask him anything. Tanioka, popular among girls, admits that while he is often rejected, he finds the experience enjoyable as he finds the minds of women tricky. He tells Nozomi that he has no useful advice for dating Kirishima, as he is unsure about his own success with women. Nozomi, surprised by Tanioka's remarks about Kirishima, tries to clarify that it's not a date, just a casual hangout. Tanioka insists that it sounds like a date and asks where they are going. Nozomi, uncertain, admits that he has never gone out with a girl and doesn't know how to approach it. Tanioka suggests that he simply ask Kirishima where she would like to go, and Nozomi agrees to try. Nozomi, with Tanioka's guidance, opens his phone and sends a text to Kirishima. Meanwhile, Kirishima, relaxing on her bed and reading a book, is startled when she sees the message. She eagerly thinks about possible places to go but becomes so excited that she struggles to decide. Finally, she decides to let Tori-kun choose and sends a text, though she accidentally changes the wording, sending a message that reads, "As long as I'm with you, I'd go anywhere." When Nozomi reads her reply, he is taken aback by her response. Tanioka, noticing Nozomi's reaction, teases him about his noticeable expression. Still confused, Nozomi wonders where they should go. Tanioka suggests a simple movie outing, reassuring Nozomi that the success of the date depends more on enjoying each other's company than the choice of the activity. He adds that they can make memories together, whether the date is successful or not. Nozomi, still unsure, asks why Tanioka is so confident in these matters, but not in his studies. Tanioka smiles awkwardly. Meanwhile, Kirishima feels anxious about the message she accidentally sent but feels relieved when Nozomi ignores the embarrassing part of her text. They continue texting and agree to meet for lunch the day after tomorrow. Nozomi gives Tanioka a grateful nod for his assistance. As he ponders the impending date, Tanioka reminisces about his dating failure. Nozomi, sensing the gravity of the situation, muses that deciphering a woman's heart is no walk in the park. The long-awaited day finally arrives. Nozomi stands near the designated meeting spot, waiting for Kirishima. The time has been set at 1 o'clock, and while he tells himself he is not as nervous as he was when she first invited him to her house, a lingering sense of anxiety fills his chest. After all, this meeting was entirely his idea. He reflects on what might unfold, imagining them going to a nearby cafe before heading to the movie he has chosen. As these thoughts occupy his mind, Kirishima appears, her voice breaking his reverie as she apologizes for keeping him waiting. His expression softens as he turns to look at her. A sense of admiration washes over him, and he compliments her on how pretty her dress is. She thanks him graciously, and they begin walking towards the cafe he has in mind. The atmosphere between them feels light yet tinged with nervous excitement. At the cafe, their orders arrive, and Kirishima's eyes light up at the sight of a beautifully decorated dessert. She expresses her delight, mentioning that she didn't know about this cafe near the station. Nozomi admits that it's also his first time here, revealing that he found it online. Her happiness is infectious, and as she enjoys her dessert, Nozomi thinks to himself that he didn't expect her to be so pleased. After some time, Kirishima asks about their next destination. Nozomi outlines his plan to watch a movie titled Tenki no Nico, which prompts Kirishima to share her enthusiasm, admitting she has been looking forward to it as well. Their conversation naturally transitions to a discussion about the movie poster, filled with animated observations and shared excitement. As they leave the cafe, Nozomi remarks on the ample time remaining before the movie begins and expresses his gratitude for her interest in the film. Kirishima responds modestly, implying that the invitation itself is meaningful to her. Both are momentarily flustered, their mutual embarrassment evident as they blush. As they walk together, a subtle distance remains between them, though it's clear they are growing more comfortable in each other's presence. Suddenly, the spirit accompanying Nozomi mischievously nudges him closer to Kirishima, causing their hands to brush accidentally. The contact leaves both of them startled and nervous. Nozomi apologizes, and an awkward silence settles between them. After a while, they seem on the verge of holding hands when a child's loud cries disrupt the moment. Kirishima notices a small boy sobbing nearby and approaches him to ask if he is all right. The boy tearfully explains that he has lost his mother. Kirishima turns to Nozomi for advice, and he suggests taking the child to the police station. However, the boy looks at him with suspicion and questions who he is. Kirishima replies that Nozomi is her friend, which prompts the child to smirk and cling to her possessively. Nozomi's frustration grows as the child, Morishima, insists that Kirishima help him find his mother. Kirishima tries to explain that the police are better suited for such tasks, but Morishima refuses to let go. Eventually, she agrees to help him search. Nozomi forces a smile to hide his irritation, though internally he's seething. His carefully planned day feels increasingly derailed. As Kirishima holds the child's hand and walks ahead, Nozomi notices the spirit glaring at Morishima with intense anger. Suddenly, the spirit lunges forward with a giant pair of scissors, intending to harm the boy. Alarmed, he instinctively steps between them to protect Morishima. To diffuse the tension, he quickly points out an old woman nearby, claiming she must be the boy's mother. Morishima, unimpressed, declares that she isn't his mother. Embarrassed, Nozomi apologizes, his nervousness evident. Trailing behind them, Nozomi watches Kirishima and Morishima interact. A pang of disappointment strikes him as he realizes his carefully planned first date has been disrupted by the unexpected presence of the mischievous child. Despite his frustration, he resolves to hide his feelings, though the day has clearly not gone as he envisioned. Kirishima and Nozomi enjoy their date, but their plans take an unexpected turn when they encounter a lost child. Concerned for his safety, they decided to help him find his mother. Nozomi feels a pang of disappointment at the disruption, though he doesn't voice it. As they search, the scorching heat becomes unbearable, and Kirishima notices an ice cream shop nearby. She suggests taking a break for some ice cream, and her enthusiasm quickly lifts the mood. Morishima also becomes excited at the idea, and Nozomi, observing Kirishima's kindness, softens his earlier frustration. He offers to buy ice cream for everyone. Morishima eagerly declares he wants chocolate, and Kirishima opts for matcha. When Nozomi hands Morishima his cone, the boy snatches it eagerly, his excitement evident. As they sit together, she remarks how this moment feels reminiscent of a parent-child outing. Initially confused by her comment, Nozomi soon agrees, finding a sense of warmth in the situation. However, Morishima, noticing their closeness, suddenly rushes toward them in an apparent fit of jealousy. Before he reaches them, the mischievous spirit accompanying them extends her long hair, causing Morishima to stumble. His ice cream falls to the ground, and he bursts into loud, heartbroken sobs. Kirishima crouches beside him, asking if he is hurt, but his cries are solely for his lost ice cream. She tries to console him, but her efforts fail to calm his tears. Nozomi, moved by the situation, offers his own ice cream to the boy. Morishima accepts it without hesitation, his tears subsiding. She reminds Morishima to thank Oni-chan properly, and the boy expresses his gratitude, though his focus quickly returns to enjoying the replacement treat. After finishing their ice creams, Kirishima refocuses on finding Morishiba's mother. Morishima, however, questions why Nozomi isn't taking the search seriously. Just as tensions rise, the spirit points toward a woman in the distance. Nozomi begins to speak, but Morishima interrupts and looks toward the woman. Recognizing her immediately, he shouts, "Mama," and runs into her arms. The reunion is emotional, with the mother expressing her relief and gratitude to Kirishima and Nozomi. Kirishima assures her they are simply glad Morishima is safe. Morishiba's mother urges him to thank his rescuers, and the boy responds by hugging Kirishima tightly. With a smirk, he casts a sidelong glance at Nozomi, who can only watch in bewilderment. Before leaving, Kirishima advises Morishima not to get lost again. In response, the boy boldly declares that she should marry him if she ever breaks up with Nozomi. Her nonchalant acknowledgement shocks Nozomi, leaving him momentarily speechless. As the mother and son walk away, Kirishima apologizes to Tori-kun for the disruption, lamenting that they weren't able to see the movie they had planned. He assures her there's no need to apologize, as helping Morishima reunite with his mother was more meaningful than any film. He even remarks that the experience, though unexpected, turned out to be enjoyable. Kirishima agrees, finding the day uniquely memorable. Her agreement brings a sense of relief and happiness to Nozomi, who feels their bond deepen through the shared experience. The couple begins to consider their next steps when the spirit suddenly touches Nozomi, startling him. She points toward his pocket, prompting him to reach inside. He discovers a lottery ticket he had received with their ice cream purchase. Though skeptical, he suggests they check it out to determine their next activity. Kirishima agrees, though he jokingly predicts they'll win nothing of value. To their surprise, the lottery ticket earns them a special prize, 2 reserved seats for the upcoming Seikawa Fireworks Festival. Both are stunned by the unexpected win. The attendant handing over the prize wishes them an enjoyable time together, causing a moment of nervousness between them. Gathering his courage, Nozomi asks Kirishima-san if she would like to attend the festival with him. Her agreement fills him with joy, and the prospect of the event excites them both. As Nozomi reflects on the improbability of their win, his gaze falls on the spirit, who smiles knowingly. He begins to suspect her involvement, though he doesn't mention it. Instead, he focuses on Kirishima's visible excitement. She expresses her anticipation for the festival, and he echoes her enthusiasm, though he can't help but contemplate the darker side of the world. The day before the much-anticipated fireworks display, Nozomi finds himself sitting in his room, staring at a neatly folded yukata lying on the table before him. The traditional attire, though elegant, fills him with unease. His mother had suggested he wear it, emphasizing its appropriateness for the occasion, but he feels hesitant. The yukata is expensive, and the thought of wearing it makes him self-conscious. His mind drifts to Kirishima-san, wondering if she will wear it as well. When he pictures himself in the outfit, the image feels awkward and embarrassing. Nozomi debates whether to go shopping for alternative attire. After some internal deliberation, he decides to visit Gion, a local shopping area, hoping to find something suitable. Upon arriving, he is immediately overwhelmed by the array of options and feels unsure of what would suit him. As he nervously scans the shops, he unexpectedly encounters Kaga-senpai and Tendo. Haga greets him cheerfully and assumes he is there for crafting supplies, a hobby he occasionally indulges in. He corrects her, explaining that he is looking for clothes. Curious, Kaga probes further, asking if the clothes are for the upcoming fireworks display. Her tone, playful yet teasing, unsettles Nozomi slightly. She suggests they take a break and grab some snacks, inviting Nozomi to join them. As they chat, Kaga shares her excitement about the festivities, amazed at how he won a special prize on his first attempt. Nozomi listens attentively, agreeing with her enthusiasm. Tendo brings up the Seikawa River fireworks display, noting how popular it is and the large crowds it attracts. Kaga nods in agreement and turns her attention back to Nozomi, questioning whether he intends to buy clothes for the event. He admits that he might, but only if he finds something that feels right. Kaga's playful demeanor shifts slightly as she inquires whether he owns a yukata. Nozomi hesitates, explaining that he feels wearing a yukata might be strange for a guy. Kaga immediately challenges this notion, her voice rising with a mix of exasperation and determination. She points out that if he would like to see Kirishima in a yukata, he should not be reluctant to wear one himself. Nozomi tries to justify his hesitation, suggesting that most girls might not care for a guy in such attire. Kaga counters with conviction, taking opinion from Mashiro though it's disregarded. Her firm stance leaves Nozomi with little room for argument. Reluctantly, he agrees to wear the yukata. Kaga seems satisfied, and Tendo observes that Kaga has successfully persuaded him. Nozomi privately doubts Kaga's authority on such matters, suspecting that her bold advice comes from inexperience rather than personal experience. Tendo asks Kaga, hinting at her lack of romantic encounters, but she brushes it off with vague affirmations. As the conversation progresses, Kaga advises Nozomi on the logistics of navigating the crowded fireworks display. She insists that he hold hands with Kirishima to avoid getting separated in the throng of people. Though Nozomi finds the idea embarrassing, Kaga explains that holding hands makes girls feel safer and cared for. She urges him to step out of his comfort zone and embrace the gesture. He reluctantly agrees, resolving to follow her advice despite his reservations. Tendo asks if he plans to confess, catching him off guard. The president advises him to be clear about his feelings, prompting him to ask about her own experiences with love, though she has none. Nozomi reflects on his feelings, briefly considering if the spirit might be influencing him, but deciding not to place the blame there. He steels himself to confront Kirishima-san. The day of the fireworks display arrives, and the streets near the Sheikawa River are bustling with activity. The crowd is dense, and the air is filled with the lively chatter of festival-goers. Kirishima waits patiently amidst the commotion, dressed in an elegant yukata that highlights her graceful demeanor. When Nozomi approaches, she notices his attire and compliments him, expressing genuine happiness that he decided to wear a yukata. Nozomi feels a mix of pride and gratitude as he thanks her, silently appreciating Kaga's encouragement. As he looks at Kirishima, he can't help but admire how cute she looks in her yukata. Her smile lights up her face, and her happiness at seeing him dressed appropriately. He thanks Kaga silently for her persistent advice, which has helped him take this small but meaningful step. The crowd grows denser as they begin to move toward the viewing area. She mentions the overwhelming crowd, and Nozomi, recalling Kaga's words, realizes the need to act. Summoning his courage, he extends his hand to her, suggesting they hold hands to avoid getting separated. His face reflects his nervousness, but she responds warmly, taking his hand without hesitation. He wonders if being honest about his feelings will change something today.